Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Katie. Today I've got another air dry clay video for you guys, one of my favorite videos to make, and it's been a while since I did one. And usually when I'm feeling like I'm in a bit of a creative rut, I break out the clay just because I feel like there's so many different things you can do with it, and I always draw inspiration from like Pinterest and different things online. So that is what I did this week, and I'm combining two of my favorite things, which is air dry clay and Urban Outfitters. I'm going to be recreating a couple of pieces that I saw online on the Urban Outfitters website. I think these came out so cute and you're really gonna love them. So without further ado, let's dive into the video. The first thing that caught my eye were these really cute vase-shaped taper candle holders. I love the unique design of them, and I thought that they would be so fun to try to recreate using some air dry clay. I decided to kind of combine a couple of these designs to make my own candle holder. For this project, I'm using this terracotta air dry clay, which I've been using the same package for about a year now, and it's held up really well. I pulled off a big chunk of it, and it is getting a little dry after a year, so I just added some water to it to soften it up so that I could work with it and roll it out into a ball shape. I kept adding a small amount of water as needed and rolled it between my hands and out on the table to try to create a perfectly round shape. To create the part of the vase that will actually hold the candle, I used this copper piece that I got at Home Depot. You can find these in the plumbing section, and I use them all the time to make candle holders. I pressed it into the top of the clay ball and carefully twisted it until the entire base of it was pushed all the way down. After each step, I usually take some water on my fingers and smooth out any cracks or bumps that may have formed. Next, I rolled out another small piece of clay, and this is what I'm going to wrap around the copper piece to cover it up. To figure out approximately what size I needed it to be, I wrapped it around the copper piece and pressed it into the top with my fingers so that I would have an indentation where I needed to cut it. Lastly, I wrapped it one more time and marked where to cut it for the length. Now it's ready to be added to the copper piece, and then I used more water to smooth out the seam between the top piece and the clay ball. I find that it's sometimes easier to use a small paintbrush for this step rather than my fingers. I wanted to create a small base for this whole piece, so I rolled another piece of clay into a ball, then used the palm of my hand to flatten it out as evenly as possible. I left the edges slightly rounded. To join everything together, I scored the base piece using my clay knife, which just means to scratch small lines into the surface of the clay. I repeated this step with the bottom of the top piece. Using my paintbrush, I added a small amount of clay mixed with water to the base piece. Then I set the clay ball on top. Once this is all dry, it will be as if they are glued together. The original candle holder vase from Urban Outfitters had a cute star pattern etched into it, so I decided to try that out too. And it took me some trial and error, and I did mess up a couple of times, but basically I found that it's easiest to wet the clay slightly and then take a toothpick and draw the design lightly into the clay, making sure not to press too hard. I wet the tip of the toothpick frequently and cleared off any excess clay. If you do mess up, all you need to do is add some water to smooth it back out and cover it up. As this started to dry, I realized that some of my mistakes were showing through, so I added extra clay mixed with water, and then once it was fully dry, I sanded these sections down to make them smooth. And now I can add a candle and style this adorable candle holder. The second piece that I thought looked kind of interesting was this clay tile hanging. I like the contrast between the terracotta and the painted tiles, and since I had two types of clay, I decided to try it out. To get started, I rolled out a large piece of terracotta clay, trying to make sure that I kept it even on all sides. I'm going to be using a tile from Home Depot as my guide, so I just used that to generally figure out how much I needed to roll this piece of clay out. Once it was big enough, I placed the tile on top and used my X-Acto knife to cut right along the edge of the tile and make nice clean lines. Before removing the clay from the tile completely, I added some water to smooth out a lot of the rough edges. Then I carefully removed the clay from the tile and fixed the shape where necessary. To mimic the leaf pattern in the original, I placed a fake leaf over the clay and pressed it into the tile to create an imprint. You can use any type of fake leaf or flower for this step. For the scalloped edges, I followed the same process as the first DIY by lightly tracing the pattern out using a toothpick. I went around all 4 sides of the tile. The last step is to add the holes to hang it up, so I just used the end of my paintbrush to create 2 holes equidistant from the top and sides. For the next 2 tiles, I used this Crayola air dry clay, and I originally made 2, but I broke one of them while it was drying, so we're just gonna have 2 tiles for this project. I repeated the entire process of rolling out the clay, tracing the tile, and creating the holes at the top. To paint this, I used a light gray acrylic paint, and then I went with the terracotta color to match the top tile. And I wanted to go for sort of like a vintage vibe, like something you'd see in your grandma's kitchen in the 60s kind of vibe, I guess. So I used this flower stencil right in the middle, and then I roughly added my own scalloped edge using a small paintbrush. It's kind of imperfect, but that was the look that I was hoping to achieve, so I'm glad I decided to freehand this part. Lastly, to hang this whole thing up, I threaded some leather cord through the back of each of the holes and tied a knot so that the tiles wouldn't slip. Then I slid the cord through the back of the top tile and tied 2 knots in front, again so that they wouldn't slide around. Now it's ready to hang up, and I think this one was a success. Okay, you know what to do. Let me know in the comments down below which one of these 2 projects was your favorite. It's always too hard for me to decide, so I'm leaving it up to you guys, so let me know down below. And also, if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure that you go ahead and do that to see sneak peeks of my upcoming projects. I also do giveaways on there from time to time, so that is super fun, so make sure you're following me. And if you ever do try out any of my projects, make sure to tag me so that I can see them and share them on my stories. I love doing that. And also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you guys really soon.